All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Hillary Haynes with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber. I appreciate you all joining our Stimulus Fast Track webinar today as we help to ensure your business is prepared for the next round of business support. Just to go over some housekeeping items, we'd appreciate if everyone would remain muted throughout the seminar, unless you're talking, of course, to help eliminate any background noise. We will have an attendee Q&A, so if you could save your questions till the end, that would be much appreciated. If you think that you'll forget your question along the way, feel free to type your questions in the chat throughout the webinar. And then at the end, if you could use the hand emoji to ask your question live, that would be great. We have an awesome panel of experts to help you get prepared to obtain necessary financial support, whether that's through local, state, or private resources. Our panelists will discuss documents, reports, and provide tips to get your applications in quickly. Our speakers today include Norma Dunn, who is the Deputy Director of the MCSC Kern Women's Business Center, Deanna Blaise, Vice President of Member Business Services at Valley Strong Credit Union, and Kelly Bearden, the Director of Cal State Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning, Hillary.
Good morning. So our first question is directed at Kelly and Norma. We know that the federal PPP funding and Kern Recovers programs have expired, but what other programs are currently available?
Well, currently, and thank you so much for that question. And what we are seeing here and what we've been noticing as far as the funding that's becoming available, even though EIDL and PPP had taken place this summer, we're seeing more stimulus packages coming available. In particular, the one I'll be speaking about is the California Rebuilding Fund. I'm not sure if everyone on the webinar has heard of the California Rebuilding Fund, but that is a fund that has over $250 million, and it's specifically designated for small businesses. And the maximum loan amount is $100,000. But again, if you qualify for this loan product, it would assist small businesses because that is what it's directly for. These small businesses that maybe didn't qualify for EIDL, didn't get PPP or any other resources available to them. So what I'd like to do, Hillary, is share a short video just to talk about the California Rebuilding Fund so that you know what that is, the website information and so forth. So let me share my screen so I can share that video with you. Here we go.
California small businesses have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. In response, local nonprofits, community leaders, and local governments have joined together with the state of California to support them. Introducing the California Rebuilding Fund, an innovative public-private partnership that provides free support and services and affordable loans to small businesses as they navigate the challenges of the COVID-19 marketplace. We asked those involved with the effort what California small businesses mean to them.
California small businesses are where we all come together. They represent our community and provide so many people with opportunity.
Small businesses are where people take their dream and make them come true.
California small businesses are the culture keepers and good job creators of our communities. Small businesses mean the lifeblood of the community.
Immigrants with great ideas can build wealth for their families.
Small businesses represent opportunity, a pathway to wealth creation, and the chance for our society to be inclusive.
Ang negosyante ang nagbibigay ng kabuhayan sa mga Pilipino dito sa California.
Small business is like family. برای من مثل فامیل و خانواده است. ممنونم.
We love small businesses because they make our community feel like home.
Community, vitality, culture.
Provides opportunities.
and a sense of belonging.
Small business creates community.
To me, small business means continuing family legacy.
Where family and friends meet.
Small business is our passion. It's what we do 24/7, 365.
It's community and opportunity.
A great workout, reduced stress, and more energy.
Small business provides the path to the California dream.
Small business is that online order that's arriving tomorrow. It's last night's dinner delivery and it's next week's haircut. To me, small business is the backbone of our country.
Las pequeñas empresas son el futuro y queremos ayudarlas a crecer.
So just showing that again, that really, that really talks about small business in general. I mean, we know that small businesses employ 50% of the they have the workforce really here in the state of California. And what we saw initially that they didn't have access to a lot of capital, or maybe they weren't prepared. So that's why, again, in our discussions, when we're talking about how do they become prepared, what do they need to do? I'll put in the chat a link to the California Rebuilding Fund. What's great about that is we've been working with the Small Business Majority and also with Cameo to really get people and our consultants trained on the California Rebuilding Fund requirements. But they've made it so easy where business owners can go to the California Rebuilding Fund and that portal, put in their business information into the application process, and then the system actually matches them with a community development, financial development institution, the CDFI. And so what that's going to do is that actually streamlines the process. So the CDFIs are there to get these business owners. And for example, you have one business owner that has a certain number of employees or a certain number of they don't have any capital whatsoever, or they were denied PPP, so their requirements. So it really fits them with the CDFI that's more that's in a position to help them. And so they don't go to everybody. So if there's over 25 different CDFIs in the program, they're not going to go to every single one of them. They're going to go to the one that's best fit to help them. Again, the loan maximum is $100,000, but again, they look at the point of where they're at in their business and what do they need. The interest rate, I believe, is 4.25%. There is a 60-month loan and also a 36-month loan. So it depends. Also, you'll be talking about that with the CDFI, loan. I would say loan agent to figure out what that's going to work for you, because they take all the things into consideration. They're looking at your annual gross income and so forth. But what they do is they personalize it for you to figure out, what options you have available to you. Now, if for some reason you do not qualify for the California Rebuilding Fund, then they will send you to a technical assistance center or refer you. And that could be, the SBDC, like with Kelly, or ourselves with the Women's Business Centers, and or other SCORE. They work with SCORE, they work with SBDC, they work with the Women's Business Centers and even the Chambers of Commerce, right, that provide technical assistance to help them mitigate those barriers that they may have had, and then help them to, with the paperwork or anything they need to qualify to actually put their application in. So that's what's really, really exciting about it, that even though someone may not qualify, there's going to be those other resources available for them to help them through that process. The other thing I did want to mention, in addition to the California Rebuilding Fund, here in Bakersfield, again, we know that we are getting funding, COVID-related funding as well. So in January, we actually will be working with the city of Bakersfield, and there's going to be some funding available to businesses that are located within the city of Bakersfield city limits. So we'll be the technical assistance provider for that funding, and we'll be working with the local CDFI here in Bakersfield, which is Access Plus Capital. And Access Plus Capital will have up to $2 million that they're going to be able to loan to small businesses here within the city of Bakersfield. So again, if for some reason they go to Access Plus Capital and apply for that specific funding and they maybe not meet the qualifications or they have a barrier, then as a technical assistance provider, we're going to go ahead and help them with that and find out what it is that they need to whether it's, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, whatever paperwork that they need in order to qualify for that loan, to help them with that. And also just really quick, I know that in the, it was just announced, I think about a week ago, that in the new year, possibly, and this is possibly, I'm saying possibly because we never know what's going to happen, right? Over $500 million in grants for small businesses. So again, if that is coming down the pike, small businesses need to be ready, right? So, they need to legitimize their business if they're not already. They need to get all their, their ducks in a row when it comes to their business financials, payroll, employee lists, all that. Because if these things come out, and again, as you've seen, all of a sudden, there's no money, and then the next week there's $2 million somewhere. So again, and that's why we had this discussion a few weeks ago, is to really help our small businesses. And you saw that video. These small businesses, these aren't these franchises, and not to say I'm saying anything bad about franchises, but these mom and pop shops, these are the ones that are the lifeblood of our community, our downtown community, our small businesses. And these are the things that we, as, technical assistance providers and helping people with business, and Kelly knows this really well, is that, we need to help our community. And how are we going to get down to that level to help our community? And what are the resources that we're going to share with our community and, invest in our community as well? So again, the California Rebuilding Fund, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat so you can look at that. It will talk about the loan terms. Again, it is a maximum loan amount is $100,000, and the interest rate is 4.25%. And again, it's 60 or 36 months as far as the terms. But the business requirements, again, I'm just going to go over this real quickly, and you can find these on the website. The business must have employed 50 or fewer full-time equivalent employees prior to March 2020. The business must have have had gross revenues of less than 2.5 million in 2019. And the business must have suffered a direct economic hardship as a result of COVID-19, which has materially impacted the operations. And again, you have that information, and and I always tell people, as you're going through this process and you are going through these COVID-19 hardships, document that. Document, your sales went down, and you're going to do that as you're operating your business. But if there's something out of the ordinary, document that too, because they take that into consideration as well. Let's see, the business must have returned or sustained at least 1 month, at least 30% of pre-COVID revenues relative to the similar period in 2019. And then another requirement is the business must have demonstrated positive net income in 2019. So it says also the business must have been in operation since at least June 30th of 2019. So again, we have these people that may have started a business in the last few months. They're not going to qualify. It has to be in business since June 30th of 2019. And the main office or headquarters for the business must be in California. The loan must be used to support only a business's California operations. So again, if someone has a business, and we know a few who have maybe a business, the headquarters in Texas, but they have an office here in California, they're not going to qualify. So again, we can send the link with this information as well. And as far as the funding for paying it back, they have some really relaxed payback as far as when you're paying back the loan. And it's one of the things that, again, they understand what's going on with small business owners and these mom and pop shops. And then in this environment of going from the red tier to the purple tier and back and forth, they understand that too. And it is a hardship. And how do we survive? How do these small businesses survive? And again, it's one of those things where everybody's pulling these resources, and they've identified, because these things have never happened before. And even Kelly, I mean, you know, with SBDC, this is something that's very uncommon, and nobody really knew how it was going to work. And so now they're figuring out that these small business owners need help, and they need our help now. It's not time to wait. And, you know, I know that Isabel Guzman, she's a proponent at the governor's office to get California the help that they need. What that's going to look like, again, it was loans at first. Now we're possibly looking at grants, but the money's going to come. And, you know, there's more money that's coming down the road. And whether it's coming from, you know, the federal government and trickling down to the city, to the county level, and, you know, Deanna will talk about that as well. It's one of those things that you just need to be ready to go. Have your documentation. And I always tell this to our clients, have your documentation in a specific file in your computer, that you're going to utilize that, because you're going to refer to that over and over and over again as you go, and keep it updated. And then have a checklist. I'm a checklist person. If you have a checklist, and I know Kelly talks about that as well, have a checklist. And then you know that you're going through everything and you have everything. And then, you know, have a second set of eyes, take a look at it and say, hey, listen, do I have everything in place? Do I have what I need to do? And most importantly also, and maybe Deanna can talk a little bit about this when you know, she's speaking, but label your documents what it is. Like if it's your P&L, you know, your profit and loss, or your balance sheet, or your employee, identify those in the files, and maybe have your company name briefly and the name of the file, so they know when they're processing the applications what you have, and that you have everything there. And then submit it. My suggestion is to submit on a, you know, separate documents, and if it allows you to upload that or get them to them, because sometimes one PDF, they're not going to know what's in there unless they're looking at 29 pages of documentation. And Deanna's nodding, right? 29 pages of documentation. But if you label them and you're able to do that, then it helps them see, yes, they got this, they have that, and it puts you in a better position. And if for some reason you're missing something, they can identify that very quickly and notify you. So that would be my 2 cents, you know, on that. And the reason I mentioned that is because that's what we do when we help with government contracting certifications, is we guide them to label their paperwork, because the faster they can look at your application, the sooner you can either get a notification on the loan or a certification or whatever that may be. I always tell people, help them with their job, make their job easier, and then it will make your process go a lot easier as well. And that's my 2 cents on that. But again, other things are coming down the road, and we're looking at sometime in January and additional funding. So keep that in mind. And my suggestion is always, you know, be proactive and not reactive, because this money goes fast and you don't want to miss out. So thank you so much, Hillary, for that. Kelly, I know you're up next.
Thanks, Norma.
Well, thank you, Norma. Those are 2 great lending programs. And I think the key to remember is that those are 2 programs that are going to need to be repaid back. A lot of our small businesses have gotten used to these forgivable loans, which are essentially grants, the part that you get forgiven. So I think it's essential to make that distinction with so many small businesses. But there still are some really good programs out there through the end of the year, and actually one of them through the end of this week, and that's the B Cares program that many of you might have heard was reallocated for $2 additional million. And it's a program that goes up to around $20,000, grant program based on employees 25 and under. And it's been it's only open to those that are businesses operating within the city limits of Bakersfield. So that's open till Friday. So keep that in mind. The Kern Recovers PPE program, which is distributed just literally, I'd say a ton, but it's probably been closer to 100 ton of personal protection equipment to small business owners and their employees and customers that come into their stores. It still has an ample supply of PPE, I'm told. So you can go to the Kern County Recovers website, the Kern Recovers website, and order PPE. And when have we needed PPE more than we need it now? The city of Wasco, if you're located in other parts of the county, they have a grant program that's also a forgivable debt program. Last week, the state of California came out with a number of programs, and one of them was actually a tax credit program. And it just recently opened up. It's only going to be open for a couple of weeks. The unique thing about this program, so many of our tax credit programs are only based on income tax. But this program is also available for sales and use tax. So you can be, and there's an employment component of it. I won't get into the details, but there's an employment component that you need to know about. And if you're, say, a restaurant that's collecting and remitting sales tax, you can actually get a credit against those taxes that you collect by hiring qualified people into that program. Many of you have heard about the Main Street Lending Program has made a lot of national news lately. And that was a larger program that really had us at the SBDC really optimistic that it was going to do a lot of lending and be a real valuable program for credit lines and for other programs that just really are so hard to get these days. But it really hasn't turned into that, to whereas a lot of the businesses are now applying for it now that it's going to be going away on 12/31. And it's really for larger small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Originally, it was for $1 million. It came down to about 100,000. But that's a program that does suit the need. You know, one of the applicants and recent borrowers was a $300 million borrower that we have in town, 24-hour gym. So it's available. It's going away. And lastly, I just want to mention a couple of groups that are still doing stuff. The Kern Venture Group is still doing venture deals locally. And so if you have an innovation project, they're still very active. And then also after the first of the year, very soon, we're going to have a similar program to the Bakersfield Cares, the B Cares program. And the state of California is going to have a grant program that should be opening up. It'll probably be done through the CDFI. So look at Access Plus Capital and others for that. But there's still a lot of things that are going on and still going on till the end of this month in many cases. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Now, there's questions to the entire panel, but we'll start with Deanna. I know you mentioned a couple of programs, but what are you hearing about the potential for new stimulus in programs that could help small businesses?
Hillary, what we're hearing right now through that Congress is still heavily in discussions about a second round of PPP loans. What we're hearing, if you would like to go out and look at congress.gov, you can actually look up the bill that's been on the floor for a while and going through discussions. We're still not definitive on what those final stimulus approvals are going to look like through the HEALS Act. But they're tossing around anywhere from 140 billion to 280 billion. They're saying that would be put to a second round of PPP. One of the elements when we looked at possible qualifications would be meeting the size standard for SBA, but then also looking at no more than 300 employees. And there may be a 50% drop in revenue. It's been back and forth between 25 and 50% in drop in revenues of what that would look like for qualifying. We are also hearing that some new eligibility of certain costs that businesses had to incur for securing the safe and health of well-being of individuals will be an eligible operation expense potentially in the second round, as well as, of course, payroll costs, rent, mortgage, utility, but then also including any possible property damages that business owners may have incurred due to vandalism, et cetera. So we're still waiting to see what ultimately gets approved so that we can properly give good guidelines to business owners out there, but we are watching very closely to see what will be approved. As far as us at Valley Strong, we are prepared to follow the same online electronic applying application system that we did before. Now, we also are hearing that the application will be a very similar streamlined application that happened with SBA. So we're looking to see if anything at all will change so that electronic systems could be updated so that we are prepared once it is approved, that stimulus will be available and ready to go. So the one thing, we had talked about encouraging business owners to be ready along the lines what Norma was talking about is making sure if there is a revenue reduction element to qualify, make sure that they have their revenue documentation, their income statements ready from 2019, and then comparing to what that time period would be, let's say first quarter of 2020, and have those elements documented appropriately and make sure that they have their income statements ready to go. I also recommend they have their payroll tax documents ready to go, looking at the time period reviewed in 2019 or comparing to 2020. We're almost actually through a full year, so I would recommend that they have all those documents labeled appropriately, ready to go. We're also hearing, depending upon when it's released, and people will have not filed their 2020 tax return. As you know, we were taking, or SBA was taking drafts of the 2019 returns as we were applying. I also would recommend that they have their draft, should be close to completed, their 2020 income statement, having that ready to go so that small businesses can, have their income and expenses documented appropriately. And then also, if they do plan on utilizing the different categories of expenses, I would make sure that they have those elements, documented properly. If their line item, the operation expense that was going towards supporting the health and well-being of the community or their employees, having those, like Norma was saying, having things documented appropriately when certain things of time, bulk expenses were incurred, have the documentation and support for that. I would say would be the best avenue, preparing their application ahead of time. I would also recommend that individuals go out to sba.gov, or they can secure a sample application from Valley Strong of what the previous PPP loan application looked like. If people have not applied before, we've always encouraged them to go out, take a look, so that they can be prepared on what's being asked. There's a lot of great resources on sba.gov website, and we've encouraged business owners to continue to follow that website as well, because that's where the most current information is happening, as well as treasury.gov. That's where we've been watching as well to see, day by day, week by week, new information is getting released. So that's where I would say for business owners, just be ready with your documents. And if you need assistance, Kelly and his team have always been a wonderful resource for our community. Hillary, the chamber as well. And then I also encourage, if people are struggling with some of their bookkeeping work and need assistance, I recommend they seek out a qualified QuickBook Pro advisor, somebody like that. There are several wonderful QuickBook advisors in our community, and you can look those up through the Intuit website, which will identify QuickBook Pro advisors right here in our community. And I work with many of them that are more than willing to sit and guide a small business to assist them with their financial reports that are required in order to put forth a really good quality application. Like Norma was saying, the more organized you are, the easier it is. And when you're documenting each of those documents one item at a time and linking them to your application, it makes for a lender that much easier and smoothly to go through the process. If you can imagine with lenders, when they're processing hundreds of applications at a time, when they have to stop to break down certain documents, it does take a little bit more time to visit that application and get back to the borrower. So it can be a frustrating process, I know, for the small business owner in putting a good application together, but we are here to help, and we want to advise wherever possible to help put that best foot forward to remain positive in such a upsetting environment right now for small businesses.
Thanks, Deanna. Kelly, Norma, did you want to touch on that?
Well, I'll just add a little bit, just a little bit on the stimulus. And it's kind of unique because the stimulus that's being proposed right now is what we've had all along, and that's a bipartisan solution. And as long as we've had politics out of the situation, everything has gone smoothly. But being an election year, if this was really COVID-19 in 2019, we would probably had another stimulus about 4 months ago. Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about the stimulus program as soon as July, and here we are in December, and we still don't have it. And a lot of the things that this bipartisan group did was they are, as I mentioned, Republicans and Democrats, congressmen and women, and also senators. And what they did was they came up with about 14 different items that make up this $908 billion package that's being negotiated. Everything from opiate treatment to state and local support for local government. So there's a lot of moving parts on this. One of the things that we, in monitoring a lot of the committee reports and a lot of the small business committees in both the House and the Senate, was that with a second PPP, it's fairly obvious that it's going to go toward distressed businesses. Whereas the first one came out and was kind of a fix-all for all businesses, this one is going to go for those that are distressed, and it could even break down into the SIC codes and other things directly where your business is located. And Deanna was spot on when she mentioned that the financial information is imperative, and I would even break it down by each quarter, because you don't know which quarter the government is going to come back and reference when you had a downfall. And they're going to be looking for that 40 to 50% increase, at least probably 30% decrease that you have had in sales over a prior period from 2019. So please keep that in mind when you start putting things together. But it looks like we have something going, and plus we even had a, I don't know if it was positive or negative, but we had another similar type of entry last night by President Trump that came into the stimulus mix. So we really hope to have something soon, and look forward to it. So that's about what I have on that. Thank you.
And I just wanted to chime in really quick on what Deanna said about having either a CPA, a tax professional, and again, the taxes was a big issue. For people who, we had a lot of sole proprietors that really weren't ready for what happened. So have somebody that you work with. And also, she mentioned QuickBooks. That was really key, because we jumped in with the QuickBooks. We have a QuickBooks expert that is a business consultant here at the Kern Women's Business Center. And we were sending him information, all the people, even for the forgivable loan process and for any sort of grants, and also for PPP, and even, EIDL, to get their information together. And that's so key when you have that person that can just jump in for you, and you give them their information. They're able to prepare the paperwork and documentation that you need in order to obtain either the loans or these grants, or the loan to grants. So definitely have somebody that you trust, that you can utilize. And actually, I know Kelly has some great resources as well. Find that person that you can do there and sit with them, and contact them and get your paperwork together.
Thanks, Norma. So we're going to pivot and talk about getting businesses prepared for additional business support. I know that you guys have mentioned some of the best practices, but is there anything that you'd like to share, like things to avoid from your experience dealing with the federal and local stimulus programs?
I can jump in. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till the last minute to get your forgiveness loan paperwork together. We had a few clients that came to us, you had 18 weeks, right, to get that in. And then, the last week it was all of a sudden, it was like, oh my gosh, okay. So, we're here to help you with that. But don't wait till the last minute. If you know you have a certain amount of time, schedule that, or get somebody to help you with that process. Because if it's like anything else, if we procrastinate and it's up, the time is up, you're going to miss out. And then you're going to have a loan and not a grant. So, be prepared for that, and don't wait till the last minute. And if you need somebody, to help you through that process, Deanna is there, and, but it's not their job to call you and say, hey, remember to send me that paperwork, or you have only a week left, or you have 3 weeks left. That's not their job. That's your job as a business owner, right? So just remember that. And if you put it on a calendar, or you have a reminder on your phone or something, or whoever it is in your office that's doing that for you, just be on top of that, because you don't want to miss out on that. That can really make or break what you're going to get, whether it's forgivable or not forgivable, or a grant, or you're missing a deadline. Because again, we're here to help you, but we're not here 24/7. that we would sometimes, if it feels like it, and Kelly can attest to that, we are here for you. But again, I always tell people, help us help you. We're here to help you, and we're here to guide you through that process. But again, ultimately, you're the business owner. It falls on you to make that happen.
Yeah, Hillary, I can chime in a little bit about what we're seeing on the forgiveness applications. We started accepting applications probably a little more than a month ago, and we're starting to see different elements of that come through. We've also been a part of the Kern Recovers program and have been processing quite a few of those forgiveness applications coming in. I would say, to reiterate to individuals, it's really making sure that they understand what it means on the time periods that they've used those funds. Some people are confused by what it meant to be for the covered period, and knowing that you want to have your documentation for your backup and support, when they spent the money. So from the date the loan was funded, they've either had the choice, the 8 weeks or the 24 weeks. So that's what's technically their covered period, and knowing that their documentation lines up with when those time periods were that they actually spent the money, so that their reporting periods, what they're giving, supports that, so they're not being confused and sending wrong information in. So again, going back to encourage them, take a look at the time periods of their reporting documents, so that when they do send it in, again, it's going to go much smoother versus the lender having to go back and say, okay, you've sent the information in, great. However, I need you to redo this information because it's not covering the correct period. So I do encourage the business owners, take your time, take a look at what the requirements are. And if they need additional help in clarifying what some of those things mean, we're more than happy to reach out for that. But I do agree with Norma, don't wait till the last minute. And even if we get another stimulus package, I was so shocked to see how many business owners thought, okay, I'm going to wait and see how long I can hold out. And then they're applying on the very last day, and people were scrambling. And we had so many business owners that really probably could have used the funds, but they waited so long that we just weren't able to get them, through the system and whatnot. So that can be pretty discouraging to have to go back and tell a business owner, we just didn't make the deadline. So again, I would reiterate, if and when we see a new stimulus package come out and get approved, be ready to go. I mean, this webinar could not be more timely, I think, for business owners to help them be prepared. And if they're not prepared, there's so many resources out there available to small business owners that are also free services to them. So they shouldn't be afraid to reach out and ask for that assistance to help them be prepared.
Hillary, my thing I would like to add is we had really a phenomenal response, I think, from the federal government on the PPP, and with the first stimulus that came down with the CARES Act, which essentially created Kern Recovers and BCARES and other programs. I really remember back in March just trying to figure out how this was going to happen, because it was such a phenomenally huge problem, and just couldn't get any idea of how this would happen. SBA went from 1,700 approved lenders to over 5,000, which I think is a great resource moving forward. Of course, which Valley Strong was already, I think, on that list beforehand. But I think what we saw was a lot of love for PPP. I mean, the marks we get on it when we do a survey are extraordinarily high. Kern Recovers the same. But really, a program that doesn't get quite as much love is the EIDL program, the SBA's disaster loan program, the economic injury disaster loan. And it is really, for many of us, and I know in talking to a lot of people in the financial industry, they kind of agree that this is kind of, once you have a PPP and an EIDL, you are set to make it through at least the next several months right now. Right now, we have about half of our businesses that are really dramatically impacted. And if you have an EIDL, you're in really good shape. And the one thing I want to leave with that is that the PPP was easy to get. 4 out of 5 of our businesses got that. The EIDL was more of a subjective. It was a credit-worthy loan, and it was a little harder to get, where it was only probably around 35% of businesses got it. But if you did get it, or if you were turned down, there is a process that you can go through till the end of December. And that even includes if you receive, say, a $75,000 loan, but you need an extra $50,000 to get closer to that $150,000 limit. There's a process you can go through to try to get more money from that if you've even received that amount. But all this is ending soon, 12/31. It's all done as far as EIDL goes. So I'm going to just give a little love to EIDL while we're here. So.
Yeah, and really quick, I didn't mention with the California Rebuilding Fund, there is no credit. You don't have to have a number of credit as far as reporting codes. They're not utilizing that.
Thanks, Norma. So I think that you guys have touched on the next couple of questions that I was going to ask. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Any other tips for how, like what steps businesses can take now to get prepared? I know we're going to compile a list of all the websites that we mentioned and everyone's contact to provide at the end of this, if you guys have any questions.
Well, one of the things that the Kern Women's Business Center did, just like everybody who was affected when COVID hit, is not only jumping in with EIDL, PPP, and the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, and helping sole proprietors and gig workers with that, was that we shifted to educate more on government contracting. So again, working very closely with the Small Business Administration, the Monterey Bay PTAC, and now we have our own Procurement Technical Assistance Center here in Bakersfield called the Golden State Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And so we're working with Angela Watson there to really educate small businesses on government contracting and certification. Why? Because again, in Ridgecrest, a lot of work is going to be done there. We have a $600 million casino that's going to be built at the foot of the Grapevine. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening here in Kern County. And in addition to that, we partnered with the American Red Cross, and the American Red Cross, just so that you know, when there is a disaster, whether it is a fire, an earthquake, a flood, whatever, and they're looking for businesses to provide food or shelter or anything in that manner, they're looking for certified businesses, whether they're women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses, to do that work for them. So again, another benefit of getting government certifications, when you have a national organization that goes looking for you, right? So, those are the things that we like to share with people. And of course, working with the executive director, I so happen to be on the board, but also, when that happened is that, that's good to know that there are nonprofit organizations out there that are looking for small businesses to get them into the fold and the resources that they provide when there is a local emergency.
The point I'd like to make moving forward is that right now we're talking about another stimulus package around $900 billion. If that does go through, I think business owners need to stay tuned and they need to find out what's in that. And you need to go to valuable sources and find information, because as I mentioned, there's 15 line items in there right now. And that's just the one that is being considered now. We have a new president coming in the end of January, and he's already said that there's one of the first things on his docket is going to be a stimulus in addition to this one. So keep looking and keep being appraised of what's out there and available, because there's a lot more resources that are going to come and help small businesses.
Thanks, Kelly. So it looks like we have one question, and if you guys want to, we'll do the Q&A portion right now. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Norma, Deanna, or Kelly, now's the time. We did have one question in the chat, and I'll go ahead and read it. It says, we are a small general contractor firm in Tehachapi. We have seen a sharp drop in revenue and a significant increase in material costs. We outsource labor to a third-party labor provider. What would be your recommendation for emergency funding?
I'm going to, what I tell all our clients, apply for everything that you feel you qualify for. Whatever's coming down the pike, whatever is available. And if you don't qualify, let them tell you no. And the reason, I'm going to share an example. When we had EIDL, and we had an EIDL loan, and we were helping individuals, and people were applying because it was changing every day. One day you didn't qualify, the next day you qualified. Then how that process was going, right? So we were telling our clients, apply, apply, apply. We have a client who's an urban farmer, and of course, when EIDL first came out, it was not available to the ag industry. So we told her, just apply anyway, and then just let them tell you no. Well, she did, and they did tell her no. But when EIDL came out again and ag was now in that, she was first in line. So she got her EIDL. So they put her application to the side, and she ended up getting her EIDL because she was first in line, because even though she didn't get it, she was in line when they opened it up. So again, I just apply for what's out there. I think when you're coming to emergency funding, I know a lot of people now don't want to take an additional debt and get a loan. Find out what grants are available out there. And I know that there's going to be some coming up, whether it's the city or the county. And again, if you're a contractor, there's a lot of work. I did a webinar for the Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of work that's going out there. Temporary housing is going to be put out for the work that's going out in China Lake. They're going to need food, restaurants that pop up. Vendors are going to be coming up. So again, look into that. And if you need any help, and we can connect you with Tim over there at the Ridgecrest Chamber. But there's a lot of work that's going to be going on in Ridgecrest itself within the next few months.
Thanks, Norma.
What I might add is I would encourage you, if you didn't have employees, you couldn't participate in Kern Recovers or PPP, but you still could participate in what I just mentioned, the EIDL program, the economic injury. And again, that's open. And if you received one, again, that's smaller, try to get it bigger. The only other thing I see coming online, other than what has already been talked about today, would be that state grant that's supposed to be coming out the early part of January. And I don't know if it's going to be based on employees or what until we see more details on it. But I would go through the disaster loan port if you haven't already, and I would put it in a disaster loan application. It's 30 years at 3.75%. Cost $100 to get the loan, and if you get it, you don't have to use the funds. You can pay it back with no prepayment. So that is really, right now at this stage of the game, the best option I see for you.
Right, and I know that they talked about the Builders Exchange, the Kern County Builders Exchange. That's where the Golden State PTAC is housed. And Angela has mentioned that she's already consulting on government contracting. But again, utilize your resources. The Kern Builders Exchange is a great resource and available for Kern County businesses. Look at their website, and I'll get that list over to you, Hillary, as well, so you can have those resources available. But find out what's going on in Kern County, and networking with those individuals and learning about them. They're more than happy to help you with those resources to help you. Again, I think Kern County is a very relationship-driven community and county, and willing to help our small businesses. So I think that, don't be afraid to ask. That would be my biggest advice. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask a question and say, hey, is this something that I could do? Or do you know someone who can, can help me? I know Kelly is always very helpful with that. I'm sure Deanna is also in the Bakersfield Chamber. But you don't know if you don't ask. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Again, you can go off mute and ask it live if you'd like. Maybe you guys did such an amazing job answering all the questions. You guys did.
Contact us later. I mean, we're here. Our information. I know, we're easy to find as well. But I think that we're at a point right now in our community where information is key, and relevant and timely information, and finding out, like Kelly said, we don't know what that grant program is going to look like in January. $500 million, that's a lot of money. But again, even though we don't know what that's going to require of us, we still need to be ready as much as we can. Like Deanna said, if you get the PPP application or the Kern Recovers application and see what they're requiring and be ready with just that, it's probably going to mirror that, if anything, right? Because that's all the basic business information that they're looking for. So utilize that as your checklist or something that you want to prepare for in advance, and have that ready to go. And of course, again, your dates are going to change because we're coming up to the end of the year, but talk to your CPA, your professional, or a QuickBooks advisor, or someone that can help you with that, to start working on that and getting that prepared and saying, okay, this is what they're looking at. This is where I'm at. What do I need to do to get to this point? And really just kind of take that by air, because we, like Kelly said, we don't know, but we still need to be ready, because you do not want to miss on that. If it's a grant, that's something you do not have to pay back.
Hillary,
Yeah, and I will agree that there's a ton of, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, Kelly, go ahead.
And see, Deanna was on one of our webinars, and I'm still cutting her off. We're doing our 39th consecutive webinar Wednesday at noon today. A lot of the resources, Deanna was one of my favorite guest speakers from our number 20th episode, I recall. So you're due to come back, okay? We're going to get you again. But resources like that are a weekly resource that are out there. There's tons of free resources out there in the community, in addition to online, that can help you. We've tried to address some of these today, but there are a lot of resources, and you can contact me at the SBDC, which is kbearden@csub.edu. Sorry, I didn't put it in the chat. Or show up at one of our webinar Wednesdays. Again today, and ironically, it's on procurement. We have our procurement specialist, Erica Baltazar, who's going to be talking the last half hour after we talk a half hour on PPP stimulus. And a lot of the same stuff you've already heard today, but it's there every Wednesday, and there are plenty of other resources out there. So please do take advantage of them. Deanna.
Yeah, one of the last things that I was going to talk about is just making sure that people check in with their CPA or advisor that is assisting them around this time of year, right before the end of the year happens. If you haven't talked to your advisor about tax planning, knowing that all the different stimulus packages that have been put out there, we haven't received all the guidance I'm sure that the CPA community is going to need for understanding how these loans are going to be treated and expenses are going to be treated once grants and things are approved. So I also encourage, while there's still time, make sure that you're talking with your advisors on what your tax situation may look like as we think about applying for additional grants and possible loans that are out there. Although we want businesses to thrive and be able to continue on their businesses, it's also good to take a step back and look at your big picture and know what your financial situation is going to look like going forward. The last thing, that we want to see is, more debt or whatnot be put onto businesses that maybe aren't taking a stop moment to take a look at the big picture. So I do encourage that. There's still time to do that, and it's well worth the time to sit down with your advisor to look at the big picture.
And I just want to mention also really quick, Hillary, is I know that there's businesses out there, but there are nonprofits that are here in our community. As far as I'm concerned, that's a business. I mean, they have employees, they have funding, they have budgets, they have everything. Even though they have the 501c3 status, right? They're still a business, and they're still operating, and they're still part of our community. I would, suggest that they utilize a resource for the Kern Community Foundation. There's grants available for nonprofits that are going through COVID. There's COVID funding going to nonprofits as well. So look at those as well. Again, and let's not forget them, as far as them, nonprofits, because they've been in our community for ages, right? How can we help them as well? And that's what we really, want to mention that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Norma. So I'd also like to share an upcoming webinar that we're doing next week, and that is on the COVID-19 vaccine. And that'll be next Thursday, December 17th at 10 a.m. So with the COVID-19 vaccine becoming a reality, many employers are finding themselves wrestling with so many questions. Should and can they require their employees to be vaccinated? What are the legal implications of such actions, and how do employers work alongside their HR department to communicate these new policies and expectations? Then consider the public relations aspect of it. How do you effectively communicate the options to your employees, contractors, customers, and clients? How will you manage potential criticism in the workplace and on social media? These questions and more will be answered by our panelist, HR consultant, Dr. Juanita Webb, attorney Dan Klingenberger, and Tracy Leach, who is the owner of Providence Strategic Consulting. So I just dropped in the link to register for that in the chat. Again, thank you so much to our panelists today for providing all these helpful tips and information. Again, this webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube channel later today. We'll be sending out a list of the websites that were mentioned and then just quick tips to help you guys. Again, thank you for joining, and be safe and be well, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Norma, Deanna, and Kelly.
Thank you for having us. Bye, everyone.
Bye.